Welcome to the Infinite Life, consciousness raising, spiritual transformation. I'm your host, Katish Haberfield. I am a channel of spiritual beings who portray, display, embody, and convey higher spiritual intelligence to help us humans who are incarnated here today on Earth on our journey of not only a single spiritual awakening, but multiple spiritual awakenings. We're all here to help, and there's bound to be an episode or an entire season that will help you on your journey. So I'll let you explore them. But if you would like to work with me in a private capacity, you can head to katish.com. And thank you. Bless your soul and namaste. I wish you well on your journey. Enjoy the episode today. In this episode, you'll hear a one-question session with Aprille Pullins. Aprille is a practitioner and an author, and she brings a question that sits around her work, her direction, and how she can best move forward in a way that feels aligned and meaningful. This is something that comes up for many people who have developed skills or modalities over time, and they're trying to understand what to prioritize, what to focus on, and what feels truly right for them. As with all of the sessions in this season, I'll take a moment to clarify the question, and then I'll connect and bring through the most appropriate being in the light to respond. What follows is the full transmission. Welcome to the Infinite Life podcast, Aprille. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. Love it.
Now, I understand you have a question that you would like to ask a being, an appropriate being who's qualified to answer, who is in the light.
Definitely have a question. So the question has a couple of questions within it, but that's okay, I'm sure, right?
Sure, I'm sure they'll boot you off if they don't like it.
Okay. I would like to understand how a soul truly finds its full, authentic expression here on Earth. What would that feel like, look like, to completely come into our fullness of who we truly are?
Okay, fabulous question.
And then basically with a lot of humility and love, I'd love to know how I can help that process across the planet.
Okay, all right. So let me just paraphrase. Sorry, I'm already tongue-tied. It's quite a different kind of an energy. It's a very big energy. So it feels like a collective consciousness that is trying to come through. To paraphrase, and I'll just look this way for a minute so that I can get my thoughts together. You're wanting to understand how a soul feels fully embodied, fully alive, fully, I guess a word, aligned when it's incarnated here on Earth. And then how you can help facilitate that feeling. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Perfect. I will ask away. So just give me a second. Okay. All right. So my we, the soul, which is my collective consciousness of my soul. This is part of the teachings, because I was like, I'm interested in hearing this. So I'm looking this way because usually when we, the soul, comes in, it's over this way. And then I don't have this trouble with my words, and I've been feeling very nervous for the last half an hour. And I also wanted to go to sleep. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Do I have some kind of a past life or soul connection with Aprille? And then now I'm feeling like a little bit like first date-ishy. Do you know what I mean? Like the energy that's coming through is really nervous. So we'll see. Okay. All right. Enough shenanigans, guys. Let's go. So we, the soul of Katish, when she was incarnated not here on Earth, but on another dimension, which she often calls planet, but is incorrect technically, would like to say hello. We don't believe it's a karmic connection, but we believe that some of the men that she has dated in this lifetime, and that's why she's getting the flutteries. And one of the particular men that our soul knows, who you are not by any way, chance, or form, him, she used to describe him as coming from Mars. And it's not Mars, because Mars is a planet, according to you humans, but it is a dimension that has a frequency that resonates with the destruction of what happened on Mars. And as an aside, when she was in high school, she used to have a nickname, which only a few people called her, which is called Kiki. And so this particular soul that she knows from this other location was called I Kick. And so when she found that out, she thought that was hilarious that somebody gave her backwards, or whatever you call it, her I Kick's name as a nickname in high school. But alas, let's move forward from that. So first and foremost, the connection is through that soul, and that's why she's feeling the residual energy. Excuse me, she needs to process some energy. Because, here we go, this does answer the questions. And she did feel this great big gust of energy come in before the session. And so what we would say is that in this lifetime, in the most politeness of ways, there have been some, we would call them galactic energies, who have tried to ensure that she finished off some romantic cycles in this lifetime on Earth that were not finished in other locations outside of what we would call Earth, but inside what you would call the universe. And so sometimes these have been very karmic situations. So in order to answer your question using her as a demonstration, and because she's smiling, we know that it's okay. For some people here on Earth, she's going to get an itchy nose, so she knows that angels have come right up under her nose. For some souls early in their incarnations, like Katish, the predominantly large portion of their incarnation is to feel embedded here on Earth by either connecting with people who are similar to them, so souls that are actually doing like work. And for Katish, she did not find that early on in life. She found one, shall we say, former romantic person in the early years of her life, who they found each other again in this lifetime, but this lifetime is not a romantic connection whatsoever, but she knew exactly where this person was at all times. It's like she had her spidey senses on as a small child, which we found very amusing, because we'll tell you they didn't really get on very well in other lifetimes, but they did find each other again. And so for some people and some human beings, it is the most urgent and prioritizing value that they have, which is to finish off business on this planet, so their soul can feel full and complete and heart-centered again. And so we would say to her, the Katish that you're talking to right now, that her soul has been on a mission to complete karma in relation to different soul cycles, we would call them, so different iterations, where there were certain themes or focuses that were the focus of the soul to heal. For example, in some different incarnations, she has had different aspects of consciousness who have focused on certain kind of experiences. So we would call one set of consciousness from her soul, not our soul, but we're very similar. That's why we were allowed to come through. That, sorry, she just wanted to clarify that. Not important. Okay. One aspect of her consciousness, which was a large proportion of her consciousness, would incarnate simultaneously in what we would call religious-based lifetimes. And there she was to feel the absence of love in a physical sense from other human beings. So no same sex or different sex, so no male-female or male-male or female-female intimate relations, because they were lives of chastity, obedience, spiritual learning, and in her case, spiritual disobedience. She has mastered in the act quite well of spiritual disobedience. And so for her, what we would call absence was the absence of a connection of divine love. So in these situations, in these monk or nun or spiritual mastery lifetimes, she did find that there was an absence of a connection to a divine creator, source, God-like energy that she would have expected in these institutions, which made her rebellious, made her subject to inquisitions and things like that. She generally managed to survive okay, but it was one sort of a soul cycle, as we would call it, that her soul was very interested in. And her we the soul is just over here, just in the background, so that we can connect and confer that this is fine. And so other lifetimes listeners of the podcast may have discovered were in what we would call monarchies, not monastics, monarchies, so king, queen roles. And she does write in your book that you two are writing in about a incarnation as a king, which she does find very funny, because the current king and queen of Denmark, the queen is from Australia. And you'll have to read the chapter to find out whether she was a king or a queen, and whether indeed it was of Denmark. But if we could wink, we would wink. And so in those incarnations, she learned to deal with what we would call the politics of a monarchy, the expectations, and how that did align to her soul's needs to understand love. And in particular, in monarchies, there's often an imposition that the head of the monarchy is connected divinely to God. So there's divine love. And then we would also say there's divine hatred, because in any person who is in a monarchy, there is, in modern days, we would say modern hatred from people bashers and the press. And then there is also more we would call pressure from the court, or the politics that goes on with the court. And just to make it even funnier, in some of those incarnations, most of them actually, she would incarnate, her soul would send two streams of information in, so two streams of consciousness, two aspects, two people in the same lifetime to interact as opposites. So she would be incarnated twice, and they would be in intimate roles. As you can see, her soul does seem to decide to have great big adventures, which some people would call disastrous, some people would say fabulous, some people would say tiresome, and some people would say, why would you do that? But hers is a kind of a teaching soul. And for that teaching soul to feel fulfilled, then it likes to experience all the different aspects of what a human does or could do, and does run off and have adventures and get quite stuck, because the more adventures you have as a soul, the more you can entangle yourself in karma, which is why the soul did decide to send two streams of consciousness in, so that the karma would balance out, and the soul would stop creating greater and greater karma. So we can't speak for all the different types of souls, but for example, for her soul, the embodiment of self-satisfaction, or the alignment, or that buzzy feeling that you feel when you are in tune with what you're here for, is not only how you can help others achieve it for themselves, but how we would say, help yourself get out of your own way, so that you can do the things that you like to do. And so it is unfortunately or fortunately is the case, whichever you wish to see, very individual for each soul and each human incarnation that you come across in your business. So Aprille, the best way to we would say move forward with this is to ensure that the way that you help people is aligned with your strongest reaction of satisfaction when you have a session. So we would say that, for example, in the field of what Katish knows formally, which was past life regression therapy, there is a million different ways you can do a session. Are you going to somewhere to prove that you're a starseed or the happiest moments of your soul, or is it a between life session, or is it a are you on the healer's path session, or is it a I need to discover my limiting beliefs about money session? You can slice the pie of the soul's experiences as a human in any way, shape, or form that you like, and then call it a past life regression or a immediate regression or spiritual regression or whatever you want to do. But what we do find is that it depends upon your own personal satisfaction. So we would again refer to her own life instead of your life, because this is a public session that says some of the most satisfying sessions for her have always been the ones where she asked for volunteers to come on the podcast, and then not a single client would sign up for the private session. And we would use and refer to the happiest session, the happiest moments of my soul session, which were taking the soul to show the incarnated person or human being the happiest moments of the soul. And they were incredibly satisfying to both the participant and the client. But we would say in a podcast setting were very long and potentially did not get marketed in the way she would have liked them because they were very complicated. And indeed, the biggest breakthroughs they got on were in the debriefing sessions afterwards. They would record the debriefing sessions and watch the sessions together. Excuse me, she has a runny nose. And they would go through it minute by minute and talk about it. And they picked up even more stuff in that. But that's not commonplace, and it's not usual for past life regression therapists, especially if you fit under a governing regulation or body. It's not normal. So she would say in her most limited way that those sessions were a personal success, but a public failure because she didn't get there's a personal recognition that she did not get. So her ego was bruised. But there was also a kind of a dismay. Now, why do human beings only wish to search for their faults, their limiting beliefs, their limiting behaviors, their blocks, their negative karmic connections, when you are incarnated on Earth, where there is both light and dark, and where people tell you time and time again, if you focus on the dark, you will see more dark. So you can end up in a loop where you reinforce the brain's perceptions of negative, limiting belief, limiting, and you could spend eternity sitting down trying to find your limiting beliefs about money if you are an adventurous soul, because money is a form of exchange and it's a form of energy, and energy is everywhere. So how far do you want to go? So you could also take a leaf from her book, if you so to speak, because she has hung up that hat now, and say, what if, and this is hypothetical, what if I wish to look at what part of the various sessions that I hold and find the ones that might revolutionize the field or might move the human mind to look at positive emotions and bring forward that kind of a session? Because I guess what we have found through her experience is sometimes when you focus on the happiness, what happens is that the negative beliefs through action heal themselves just spontaneously. There will be beings that will come in and step forward and assist in ways that don't fit a healing modality, or perhaps they do have a healing modality attached to them, but the experience is totally different than what the soul would call fixing things. So we don't know if that would speak to you as much, but these are just some examples of really sitting down with, and we know that most people in the book have had to do that. They have such a huge range of knowledge from all the different modalities and the healing sessions and the different mentalist sessions that they've had, that they've found it hard to put it into a chapter. And many could write many books. But the question is, and if you were to walk away at the end of this incarnation and you did sit on the big swing with Archangel Michael, as Katish likes to do, and you swung for a while and you said, what was your favorite professional moment? Which client would come to mind and which form of session would it be? And he would always say, you know, time's running out. I know you enjoyed them all, but which gave you the most satisfaction? Which gave you the most buzz? Which one did you want to share the most, irrespective of the financial proceeds? And we do know that QHT and past life regression therapists and all kind of therapists have been caught in this karmic entanglement of healers all around the world and the universe, which says the energy exchange in itself is enough. But come on, with inflation in modern times, we need to let you all know you need to charge what you're worth. And the way that you charge what you're worth is by finding the thing that makes your soul light up so shiny and bright that you say, I am willing to be seen as insane or feel insane to chase this buzz that is not drug related or high related, but it's a soul buzz. And so it's a different kind of a feeling from an ego-based feeling. An ego-based feeling pursues something and says, I'm qualified at this, I'm good at this, I have a history at this, I've written 16 books about this, I know 750 other practitioners and I am seen as the best in this. Or I actually ran into, and excuse us for a moment here, but Dolores Cannon, I met her. Or whoever it is, Dr. Brian Weiss, however you say it. These are symbols and tokens of egos, but they are also symbols and tokens of professionalism. But you are all, at the end of the day, energy. And maybe your sunshine comes from the fact that you have been embodied as a cloud. And we would go wink, because there is a bit of a theme of elementals here, April, in this season so far. And so if we were to go out on a limb, Katish likes to take photos of clouds, but she would not know how to make a profession out of it. But perhaps there is bodies and wisdom in ways that humanity has not really studied precisely, that could be whimsical and fantastical, that would bring an element of joy to both the client and to yourself. So we would like to say also that we believe humanity has to move forward to understand that careers and professions of the future not only are healing paths, but they are joy paths. For we would like to see humanity move towards the vibration and elevated frequency of joy. And whilst, yes, you could be a very good garbologist, or you could be an expert at pouring beers at a pub, and they may provide you with joy, but the surrounding frequency is of garbage and things thrown out. And no matter how good you are, and maybe it does bring the community joy to clean up the streets, there will be devices and things of the future that humanity begins to get afraid of that can do that for you, so that you can embody different kinds of concepts of careers, so that you don't have people, and we will refer to men for a moment, we don't have men who do reincarnate in cycles. And when we talk about these cycles, we talk about these massive whole humanity-wide cycles, so thousands of years, where we would call flog themselves to death to bring home the bacon, and then they go collectively, we're exhausted, it's the woman's time, and then the woman does it all and flogs herself to death and goes collectively, we've got the shits with you men, so now it's our time to rest and it's your time. And then there's these other people who go around the middle and say, I want to be both. And we won't get into the politics of gender stuff at the moment, but none of those are working for you here on Earth at the moment. You have resentful mothers who never got the opportunity to have a career. You have resentful career women who never got the opportunity to have children. You have satisfied career women who did want to have children. You have satisfied career men, and so the scenario goes on. But we don't see a lot of joy in anything right now in careers. We see a lot of pressure. We see a lot of stress-related deaths. We see a lot of cortisol bellies in both women and men. We see a lot of high fluctuating hormones and high temperatures. We see a lot of blame and shame, and I was under pressure and I was under a regime, so I had to do what I had to do, and I made decisions because I had 30 seconds to make them. And we would say that if you fit into any of those, you're not in alignment unless you are trying to be a bolt of lightning here on Earth. And we do make light of it, but fast decisions lead to chaos long-term on Earth. And so if people can learn to float like clouds and embody careers and lifestyles that allow you to be a form that changes with the weather, with the seasons, absorbs moisture, lets that moisture out, and brings joy to people, and just literally thinks more about themselves and decisions that are made by bringing in the wisdom from other forms of energy that is here on Earth to help you. If we went slightly back to the old kind of civilizations where they did have oracles and where they did have people that they went to advice for without shaming and blaming and saying astrology is full of made up stuff and so is this and so is that, and all tarot readers must be evil, and all this sort of stuff, and divination is terrible and they only read tea leaves on Hogwarts. If we started to bring that respect back in, to take time, to take downtime, and to actually have holidays and structure our society so that people have time to pause, we would reduce suicide, and we would reduce stress, and we would reduce the form of heaviness that we see incarnated in human beings in their body, and we would see less of the need to have healers so stressed out and empaths continually imbibing energy from other people. For the human form is not meant to be ginormous. We know what the medical ideal of a human being is, and when you have a look at some of the other, we won't call them species, but that's the only word that came to her mind right now, forms of energy, maybe have a look at the Pleiadians or whoever they are very respectable. She would use the words muscular, beautiful, framed, and that's not to talk down to anybody's body frame who is not that, but they are efficiently processing their energy, and they don't store it in their muscles or their tissues. They don't need, what's that word that she saw? Fascia release, to release the trauma from their skin. So we see, dear April, we're sorry that this has been quite a large, almost regurgitation of information for you, but you did ask a very broad and multifaceted question. And so we hope that the people who are listening today to this transmission do see the way forward for humanity is to stop and to pause and to say, how are you feeling? What is the load like on you? Where is the joy in your life? How can you teach your children to find the joy? How can you teach the children to ask other people for information, to question it, to not just regurgitate the curriculum, to design new pathways and new careers where you do things that put you in joy and you can see it resonates from people. And so we don't get legions of artists who chop off their ears because they never sold a painting while they were incarnated. We get buildings that are built quicker because they use technology that has had the consciousness working with it from a higher being, from a civilization that knew about architecture, that helped use that and embody it into the software and the frameworks, so that we get a class of human beings who is inspired and joyful. And that is how we would know if somebody was resonating at a soul level where the career was the focus, because these kinds of souls feel excuse me, sorry, she's got energy trying to come through, are very constricted when they don't seem to be achieving what they wish to achieve. And if you ask them to find joy in their private life, they would say, I'm all about my career. And that is fine, because that is their soul type. They're here to teach or to demonstrate, and it's a very specific soul cycle. But also for the people that are here to be a balanced career and personal life kind of a soul, and they're not the real words, but they will do for us right now, then finding balance pathways and sharing them and demonstrating them is also important, just as those who are, let's say, moving out to the country and becoming homesteaders and really focusing on getting back to earth and nature. They have a particular soul cycle that they're going through. And when those people are in a city, their energy self-deconstructs. And when they finally give up all the expectations, they go out and do their homesteading and building communities, no matter how weird the career pathway people who fit in more of a traditional builder, teacher, learner cycle, they can be teachers over here in the communities, but their soul doesn't resonate or shine in the city. It's a very large and big question, and we hope that for you, that you take away simply the time to reflect upon what brings you the most joy in your own business, and then perhaps some frank discussion with your higher self and some of your spirit guides, and ones that could be introduced to you through other connections, perhaps through discussions with the other authors. So they all have interesting forms of spirit guides and collective consciousness that you can actually, we would use, initiate a transmission with because of reading the chapter in the book that they wrote, and get some different perspectives on what they think make human souls radiate. And maybe you have a whole book in that, in terms of not proving that we have lived here before, but showing examples of how souls radiate so brightly that we can't miss them when they walk past us in the street and say that person is living their purpose. And that is where we would like to leave it today.
Beautiful.
I'll just wait. Sorry, I just noticed that Max had come in and come to sleep, so I was just waiting to see if he had something to say to you, April. But no, he's just comfortable. Energy needs to identify or step away. Okay, there's nothing. Okay, we're the soul. She just hesitates sometimes because she used to be a spirit releasement therapist, and so sometimes she needs to understand, is there anything else that needs to be said? Is somebody holding something back to be polite? And the answer is no. The answer from We the Soul is, there is great love here for you, and we are complete.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, it's amazing. Perfect. I love it.
If you resonated with this session and you would like to ask your own question, there are 2 ways that you can work with me. 1, you can book a private 1-question session where we focus on an area of your life and bring through a direct transmission for you. Or if you're navigating something more complex and would like a deeper level of clarity, you can book a full direct transmission session where we explore your situation in more detail, channel the guidance, and provide structured next steps. All of the details are in the links. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.